morning, it's 2-6.
Good morning, 2-6. This is War Hunt. We read you 5 by 5.
Roger, how are things at Ward Hunt today? Any traffic, over?
We are all okay and no traffic.
Roger that. How's the weather at Ward Hunt today?
I'm Catherine, and I love microbes. And as a researcher at l'Université du Québec à Chicoutimi, I work on the ecology of microbes in northern landscapes with my group, the Microbial Heritage Lab. Microbes don't all make us sick. The majority of them, even though they're invisible, are actually essential to our existence. They're in the water we drink, the air we breathe. They move nutrients and energy upwards in our food webs. They drive our energy cycles, and they can even make snow. And just like us, these ever so small microbes are constantly responding to their shifting environment. And just like us, they're being impacted by climate change, are having their lives transformed, are becoming isolated and disappearing. And why? Because some of the most vulnerable microbes live in Arctic ice, and that ice is melting. When I started working in research, I came to understand that my work, my data collection, all of it, would be closely linked with the fragile ecosystems of Arctic landscapes. This is also where I met with northern communities and their all-encompassing knowledge, from gauging the thickness of ice on lakes to the color of char. It's also where I met their reality of being at the forefront of climate change. And while climate change may be the story of ecological loss and grief, a sense of othering and a lack of inclusion that requires systemic change around the globe, this is especially true for Northerners. For example, lake ice is research for me, but it's drinking water for them. In this warming world, as we search for connected actions to heal, adapt, and recreate our present and future, I'm reminded of learnings from microbes, how they live in communities and evolve, all while communicating for shared resilience. In the same way, I'm reminded of how global biodiversity and planetary futures are interlinked with the need for ethical connection, communication, and consistent supportive environments, central to Northern research and inclusion for communities at the forefront of climate change. As we find tangible ways to move forward, I wanted to share ways in which we're working to make Northern research a truly resilient and inclusive space. Research needs to be consistently bridged and funded between Northern and Southern researchers. Current funding opportunities for research endeavors often allow too short a timeline for shared presence and engagement to support the production and stewardship of knowledge. So the current system only encourages temporary inclusion. What we need is long-term relationship building between the North and South, which requires greater awareness from funding agencies to invite mutual space for co-creation. So advocacy and inclusive check-ins with Northern communities and Southern allies by funders is a solution to help create space advancing this co-construction. Legacies of crediting Northern roles and expertise. Inclusion of Northerners in research is not always meaningful, and their contributions, as well as the responsibilities they take on, often go unseen. We need less lip service and more concrete action in crediting and honoring their expertise. What we need is to recognize and name the specific roles of participation by Northerners who collaborate in research. A solution is to choose respectful titles that reflect a person's role to outline their contribution. So, for example, collaborator, mentor, or expert rather than local guide. Putting our money where it really needs to matter. There is so much money in research, but Northerners do not always benefit from these investments, even if the research occurs on their land. So, for example, Northerners who contribute to research often have to use their own vehicles, but these vehicles are also their lifelines to the land. So participating in research can therefore compromise their livelihood. What we need is understanding the visible and invisible costs involved for Northerners who collaborate on research projects. A solution is the recognition and fair compensation for time, expertise, responsibilities taken on, and equipment used. Inclusion is an environment of intersectional bridges. Women are underrepresented in research in Southern institutions, but even more so in Northern research, and few Indigenous women have historically been involved in land-based science. Inuit women have their own unique knowledge on change and adaptation, and it's absolutely essential to include their voice in informing actions to tackle climate change. And what we need is equitable measures and platforms for different voices in knowledge production, recognizing that inclusion needs to be multi-tiered, not only acknowledging Indigenous, non-Indigenous, Northerner and Southerner, but also being inclusive of gender. A solution is to use diverse and collaborative mediums to share and link systemic support for all Northerners, not just in current spaces like HTOs, but others as well. These are all inquiry-based approaches I and others are exploring to make research more inclusive and to be a better ally to the people we work with. My journey in Northern research is far from over, and I'm really proud of the changes we at Inclusive North are creating, from traditional academic practices to more inclusive and respectful ways of producing knowledge. Still, there are many roads to travel, and I'm really looking forward to keep examining my own practices, course correcting, and working with my Northern partners to keep improving my field. In research, there's power, and we need to commit to elevating voices that need to be heard and use our own platform to break down existing colonial perspectives in research and academia. Recreating environments of inclusion and inviting students to prepare for their engagement can, for example, create much less load for the Northern communities. And just like microbes, we need to recognize our shared strength, as well as that of our community, to face the challenges to come.